Hey gamers, it's time for What Game Should Jake Play? Let's find out. Got the save 500 right here, maybe. Don't have a lot for it though. Maybe. I guess, might want to play it. No. No. Not really. Not really, don't really want to play this. Alright. Oh my god. Is this new Nintendo Switch? Is this new Nintendo Switch? This Nintendo Switch? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, Nintendo! Best system ever! Gaming! Bing bing wahoo! The Nintendo Switch, the official game console of 30-something-year-old men with glasses and goony beards, whose mouths drop open like those of primates when they get a new console that's a spin on the games they used to play in the good old days, or a new flashy toy. The Wii U was perhaps one of the biggest flops for Nintendo. Its predecessor, the Wii, was like the avatar of gaming consoles. It's one of the top-selling video game consoles of all time, being behind only the PS2. Yet just like how Avatar became forgotten about after being the top-grossing movie of all time, the Wii's game library was full of shovelware, some of Nintendo's most dumbed-down third-party games, and the console itself was underpowered and relied solely on a gimmick. While at least the 360 could have other uses when the Kinect fad wore off, such as playing Black Ops 2 or Halo, many Wiis ended up at thrift stores and sat in attics, forgotten about. The Wii U was even worse. It was underpowered, had few games outside the launch lineup, an audience that just begged for ports, and whined when its exclusives were ported to other systems. But perhaps worst of all, Nintendo not only banked on a gimmick literally nobody asked for, which was the dumb tablet controller, but the Wii U also had another massive flaw. It tried to copy the successful naming strategy of their handhelds and competitors, and while it worked for the handhelds, most people either didn't see much of a difference in the Wii and the Wii U, or they forgot the Wii U existed. Maybe it was the stigma associated with the Wii. Maybe it was the fact that marketing for the Wii U downplayed the console itself in favor of the controller. Maybe it's the fact that Nintendo launched the Wii U with the same exact kind of games that they launched the Nintendo Wii with, and sold on the Wii. During this time, as the Wii U is being outsold by the Vita, which just so happened to be the joke of gamers and game reviewers at the time, Nintendo went to Nvidia, who had tried to break into the console market with Android-powered devices and also failed, and who also tried selling their Tegra chipset to Nintendo for the 3DS. They decided to work together on a game console with the Nvidia Tegra X1 processor and GPU combo, Nvidia's most powerful mobile chip at the time. With Nintendo losing money, third parties dumping Wii U support after the initial rollout when it turns out Nintendo fans only buy games with the Nintendo logo on them, sagging 3DS sales, and poor Wii U sales, the Wii U was discontinued as Nintendo rolled out their Hail Mary Pass successor, the Nintendo Switch, a system designed to succeed both the Wii U and the 3DS, and it sold quite well, but is it any good? Well, let's talk about the Switch, shall we? So what is the Nintendo Switch? Well, the Nintendo Switch is a game console for a very specific kind of audience. It's for 20-somethings who ate their shitty job, mismanaged their money, and got picked on in school for not owning an Xbox. It's for grown men living a manufactured life, where masculinity is dependent on what products you buy, sponsored by Apple, Google, and Amazon, and where they have to put up with a crazy controlling wife and just want an escape. A throwback to the good old days when their biggest worry in life was having their lunch money taken. It's a game console for PC gamers who just got into PC gaming 2 to 3 years ago, and who love to use it as a way to shit on Microsoft and Sony, despite using Windows, yet will happily give a free pass to Nintendo and spend $300 on yet another way to play the same games. It's for lonely furries who draw images of their personas playing the Nintendo Switch. And of course, it's a game console for children. Children whose parents just want to cut through all the bullshit, cut through all, like, they just want to skip all the M rated games and just get them something they can play together with the family that's totally inoffensive, totally safe, totally apolitical. The Nintendo Switch is a quote-unquote hybrid game console. It's a handheld game console with a detachable controller that consists of two separate wand parts, similar to the Wii's controller. However, when you clip both sides on the console, it ends up looking like one complete handheld. Remove the controllers, however, and it looks just like a cheap Amazon Fire tablet with the thickness of a first-gen Android Honeycomb or similar bootleg Chinese tablet from the same time. There's also a cooling fan at the top of it similar to what the Nvidia Shield handheld had, likely to stop the device from throttling under heat like most tablets inevitably do. The detachable controllers feel pretty mediocre. The analog sticks feel similar to the Vita's with a big dead zone, however now they are clickable unlike the Vita. There is no D-pad. Instead, there are 4 buttons like the ABXY diamond that function just like the D-pad. There's also no analog triggers, instead there's click buttons. They're also $65 on Amazon, so if they break you're out, $65 on Amazon. There's also a clone of the Xbox controller which also lacks analog triggers but has a D-pad for $50 on Amazon called the Pro Controller. However, if you go by store prices, you're paying I think at least $70, which is more than even the PS4 controller costs store price. While we're on the topic of Chinese tablets, here's a fun fact. There are both tablet accessories and dedicated tablets that have a similar design to the Nintendo Switch. The difference here is their game library is even worse than the Switch's, which we'll get to later, and they're less powerful. Because after all Android has for gaming is emulators and shit like Temple Run, or Angry Birds, or that kind of thing. But the Switch at least gives you Mario. While the Nintendo Switch might feel like a handheld, the Switch also has a new gimmick up its sleeve. The dock, which features a few USB 2 ports, an HDMI port, and a USB charging port. Inside, the console is also more powerful than a typical Chinese tablet too. There's no Ethernet port, but the same old Wii Ethernet adapter and clones of it will still work on the Switch, which is only 10/100. There's also a gigabit adapter, however, I'm not sure if it supports gigabit speed due to the fact that the dock has a bunch of USB 2 ports, and some Amazon reviews had mixed opinions about the speed of it. It does, however, support wireless AC, just like every modern device worth a damn. I mean, my phone has wireless AC and so does my laptop. The Switch features a 720p IPS screen, which is normal nowadays. Even a Fire tablet has an IPS screen. And even Chinese phones have IPS screens. While it's not quite original when you consider the fact that there have been handhelds that connect to the TV, and the PSP Go even had a dock which lets you use it as a TV, charge it, and pair a Bluetooth controller, the difference here is that the dock is front and center as part of the whole experience. The Nintendo Switch uses a USB-C charging port and will charge from a USB charger, that is if you can find a USB-C cable. While USB-C cables are easier to find now, most stores as of now either only carry or mostly carry micro USB and lightning cables for like Apple iPhones and that shit. Though now that Samsung and LG have USB-C ports on their phones, I think you'll see more USB-C cables. The Nintendo Switch only has 32 gigs of storage space, which is about as much as, well, an average mid-range smartphone these days, or the Wii U Deluxe. On one hand, you can upgrade it with normal microSD cards. On the other hand, they aren't exactly the cheapest. A 200 gig card costs around $70 and a 256 gig card from SanDisk is $120. However, get this. A 400 gig microSD card costs $230, which is nearly the cost of a Switch and around the same price as an Xbox One game console with a 500 gig hard drive. This means that you're also going to be filling up your console space quite easily, and no, external USB drives don't work, so forget about buying an external hard drive like you could on an Xbox or PS4. The Switch uses cartridges that look a bit weird and have a coating to try to prevent kids from eating them, and they're smaller than discs with storage space anyhow. This means that games will sometimes need to download required updates. And boy, if it's 8 gigs like with Doom, they can take forever. When I rented Dune for the Switch, it took 40 minutes to update, and it was a forced update too. During that time, I was able to order a pizza from Domino's, drive to pick it up, eat it, and come back. Even the cheapest Xbox One and PS4 consoles have 500 gig hard drives, and they can be upgraded on the PS4 while both can accept external USB drives now. Just like quite a few modern gaming laptops, when you undock the system, the resolution and frame rate drop as the system underclocks itself to save battery. Software and feature-wise, the Nintendo Switch is perhaps the most bare-bones console release since the GameCube or the DS. It's a handheld that does only a few things. It plays video games, it lets you buy them from the game store, and it lets you connect to the online network for the sole purpose of playing video games online and buying more video games. It can't do a lot of things older consoles can do anyhow, including previous consoles such as the 3DS and Wii U. Voice chat, for example, is a clusterfuck, and while a few Wii U games supported it, on the games that did support it, it was simple. Plug in a headset, you're done. On the Switch, on the other hand, you need to use a cell phone to voice chat in game, and the official headset for Splatoon 2 looks like a wiring disaster. You need to use a special clusterfuck cable setup instead of just plugging the damn headset in. Even the original Xbox from 2001 supported using a headset without any voodoo magic or wiring bullshit, but the Switch doesn't. It doesn't do something a console from 2001 with a goddamn Pentium 3 and 64 megs of RAM could do. Or how about friends lists? On the Wii U, every Microsoft console, and every Sony console since the PS3, you could add people with usernames. On the Switch, they went back to the friend code system absolutely nobody liked, kind of like on the 3DS. However, you also now need to pay for money online despite lacking features that even Steam has, which is free still. That's right, Steam has features the fucking Switch doesn't, and it's free. Virtual Console is also absent on the Switch, and so is a web browser or media player. While Hulu is on the Switch, Netflix isn't, and neither is YouTube. The library of the Switch is, well, just like the Vita's was. It's full of ports of Wii U titles along with ports of other games. You're not going to find a lot of the big name games your friends are playing on the Switch. You might find ports of older games on there though. For example, Doom is on the Switch, a game from 2016. Skyrim, a game from 2011, is on the Switch. Payday 2, a 2013 game, is coming to it, and it'll probably be on the Switch by the time you watch this video. Dark Souls, a 2011 game, is coming to it. Noticing a pattern here? That's right. A lot of the bigger name games coming to the Switch are ports of older console games. It's almost like a repeat of the Vita or Wii U's first year, where it had a lot of ports of older games to, test the waters. Or the first year or two of the Xbox One or PS4, where developers took the HD remaster trend to its limit, where you had all these game devs releasing definitive versions of games on the Xbox One and PS4. A lot of big name games that the cool kids are playing are not on the Nintendo Switch. PUBG or Fortnite, for example, aren't on the Switch. Monster Hunter World is not on the Switch. That new Dragon Ball Fighter game I don't think is on the Switch. And what else isn't on the Switch? Kingdom Come Deliverance isn't on the Switch. If you go on Google and search for those games with Switch afterwards, you'll just get people port begging for the Switch version. Hey, where's the Switch version? Give me the Switch version of Monster Hunter. Give me the Switch version of Kingdom Come Deliverance. Give me the Switch version of Dragon Ball FighterZ. And you know what happens instead? They just end up buying it on the PC or something. NBA and FIFA are also on the Switch, but not Madden. However, if you want games on the Switch that are third party, you can play older games, like the games I mentioned that have been ported, or older games like Rocket League or Minecraft, with the latter being a game that's been ported on every single console known to man just about. I mean, Minecraft even has ports for the Vita, the new 3DS, the Wii U. That's right, Minecraft has a goddamn Wii U version on it even. It's been released on everything with the word console written on it. but at least you can bring the Nintendo Switch to school before the teacher confiscates it, since it fits in a pocket even worse than a 3DS XL or Vita fits. I think it fits about as well as, say, some of the first-gen handhelds, such as the Lynx or Game Gear. A lot of the first-party titles on the Switch are games also on the Wii U, but with a few more features added in and being sold for $60. And with those features being held back from the original Wii U versions because, even though you wasted $300 on a Wii U, fuck you. Go buy a Switch for $300 at your local Best Buy. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Pokken DX, Bayonetta 1 and 2, and Zelda Breath of the Wild fit this category, while Splatoon 2 is essentially a copy-paste of Splatoon 1, but for the Nintendo Switch. At the same time, these games are also Nintendo games. They're most of the time games for kids to play, and kids love Nintendo games. I mean, they're better for kids than the god-awful clickbait videos you find on this website targeted towards kids. Remember Elsa Gate and that kind of thing? Or those egg unboxing videos that were big on this fucking site a while back? They also appeal to grown men in the same way that those games, Genesis, and the mini Nintendo consoles appeal to grown men. They feature games with familiar mascots and gameplay. Sure, when you pop in Mario Kart 8, it's going to be the same exact game as the Wii U version, which had very similar gameplay to the last few, such as Mario Kart Wii or Mario Kart 7, except at the same time there's some appeal to all this. The nostalgia. Sure, for years and years on this channel, I didn't understand why so many nerds had nostalgia for Nintendo games, but after running into a lot of them on the internet and Telegram and Discord groups, now I actually understand why nerds love Nintendo games. Because it's a throwback to a simpler time. It's a throwback to the time when you were younger, you had hopes and dreams, when in between your shitty public schooling that taught you nothing except how to pass the shitty state tests, or homeschool that kept you isolated, you played your Nintendo. It was a time when your parents weren't home, either for a business trip or for your single mom getting smashed again, and you used this opportunity to play the Nintendo again, where you could play it all you wanted all day without getting grounded. It was a time when you thought in a few years you were going to move out into a nice house, have a great job you actually enjoy working at, and a wife and kids. And did I mention your job would pay well too? Now you're in your 20s and something went horribly wrong. College didn't quite work out, or you got some worthless degree that only means you can get a low-paying job at Wendy's as a fry cook, and you fucking hate that job. You can't find an entry-level job, and while you might be able to put your finger on why, the programming from your smartphone told you that your eyes are lying to you. Or worse, you had a run-in with the law, or you had an injury, and guess what? You can't work at all despite wanting the lifestyle of somebody who has a decent, well-paying job. Your car is the cheapest piece of shit you could find on Craigslist. And since you have no auto repair skills, you whine online that it broke down again. And your only way of paying for repairs is a GoFundMe page. Hell, if you're trashy enough, you might even be driving without insurance. Or even without a license. Whoopsies. You better pray you don't hit somebody, because if you hit somebody, you're going to be fucking locked up in prison for sure. Or at least getting fined real heavily. You're either living with your mom in a shitty apartment somewhere, or best of all, you're roommates with someone in a shitty apartment somewhere in an expensive place like Seattle or Portland. Your whole life is focused on short-term gratification instead of trying to work yourself for the rut you got yourself in, and you quit trying to fantasize it over accepting fate. You really don't care after all, because every time you feel like shit, you'll just take a few pills and try to make the pain go away. Either something like Xanax or SSRIs or some other shit. You'll end up taking them because, if you feel good, that's all that matters. Who cares about trying to get yourself out of the rut you got yourself in? Who cares about having hopes and dreams of getting it out of it? You've quit trying to fantasize yourself getting out over it, over accepting the fate of what happened to you. You might even have a PayPal me link or Ko-Fi link on your social media account, along with an Amazon wishlist begging for free video games and VR headsets and gaming PC parts. Your social media shows that at one time you were interested in either art, making a video game, or going to college, yet all you do now is tweet hundreds of times a day about how Donald Trump, the NRA, and the Russian bot army are causing another school shooting every 5 minutes, how only cops should be allowed to have guns, and how cops also kill minorities every day for traffic stops about a broken taillight. In other words, your political views line up with that of cattle. They make no sense, and while you've lost friends over this, it's a price to pay for them not being woke enough, because after all, why would Huffington Post or the Randy Rhoads Show ever lie to you? If you don't think that kids should be on blockers and pills because they bought a My Little Pony toy, Jazz Jennings style, then you're a fucking bigot, and you should, get off the internet because it's 2018 now. Holy shit. Your family might have disowned you, treating you like a freak show instead of like their son because of all the hair dye you got, as their son let them down with the poor choices combined with the worst luck. You look nothing like that successful man your parents imagined you to be, nor do you act like that person, but who cares? You're always depressed, your life isn't satisfying, and your friends, many of who you know online, are terrible. One day you'll feel fine, the next day you'll be smashing stuff and yelling, and you're reliant on something like drugs. But here's the thing. While your life might be fucking god awful and extremely stressful due to poor life decisions, poor circumstances, or both, while your life might feel like you're just another product of modern society or of a factory somewhere in the Pacific Northwest pumping out clones of failed human beings, here's the thing. You at least have the Nintendo Switch with Mario, Zelda, and all your favorite mascots on there to let you remember when you actually had goals in life, a chance of succeeding, and when you were mostly still innocent. Even though when you get to be in your 30s, your life might start to resemble, say, Chris Chan's, where you're in your 30s and one of your parents died and you're living in a shitty house with your mom still who's getting old and senile, and you still don't give a shit because all you want to do is play video games. Even if your life starts to resemble Chris Chan's life when you're in your mid 30s, guess what? You still have your Nintendo video games with you. You can't get the glory days of middle or high schooling back when you had people pretending to be your friends and where it felt so great. But, you know what you can do? You can play the game similar to what you played back in the day. You can play the new Mario. You can play the new Zelda. You can probably play the new Pokemon. I heard they're making the new Pokemon for the Switch. You can play those games. All your favorite mascots are there as your life dwindles away in depression as you play the Nintendo Switch. Let's get back to the game review. If anything, the Nintendo Switch is what the Wii U was library-wise. Iwata infamously called it a secondary console in a 2015 interview because that's what it was. What doesn't help is the reputation the Wii U owners got from game developers, choosing to only buy games that fit into the Nintendo template, and port begging for every game under the sun, yet not actually buying the games that were on their system, and instead choosing to buy them on the Xbox or the PS3 or the PC. The Switch is the same way with port begging, with Nintendo fans begging for every game being made. And if the ports of older games to the Switch flop, then expect some Nintendo fans to use the same arguments they did to defend the Wii U. Oh, you see, the developers just don't understand that on Nintendo systems, only kiddie platformers sell, and only Nintendo games sell, and they don't get the Nintendo audience, and the port wasn't any good either way, so I didn't really care for it. But how do the games run on the Switch? Well, I decided to use Doom as an example, because Doom is perhaps, I think, it was a good tech demo for the Xbox One and PS4. And I mainly used the multiplayer mode since the Switch's controller didn't seem to play that well for shooters. And Doom single player suffered. At least you can click the analog sticks down though. Games like Doom run extra downgraded, and they look pretty poor. On the Xbox One, Doom was a tech showcase, while on the Switch, it runs poorly, with lots of frame rate drops left and right. However, the Switch handles more basic games, such as first-party Nintendo games, much better. Even if their resolution's cranked down like on the Wii U, they're going to have 60 frames a second gameplay, and this is to be expected from a Nintendo console. You can make a joke about how any Nintendo console made since the Wii has been designed for one kind of game and only one kind of game. Nintendo's first-party titles. The console has 4 gigs of RAM and an NVIDIA Tegra quad-core GPU paired with an NVIDIA GPU on a chip, and I'd place it somewhere between the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One power-wise, especially since the Xbox One has more memory and obviously more detailed games. And I'm talking about the base Xbox One here, not the Xbox One X. Yet there's one major issue. The controller for the Switch is hands down the worst controller I've ever used, especially the analog sticks. Even if you click the controllers into the external dock, the battery life drains real quickly, and one of the Joy-Cons was dying battery-wise. The analog sticks feel imprecise and slippery with major dead zones, but perhaps the worst thing is how the controllers can drop button inputs wirelessly as you struggle to control the console. And the poor range is pretty poor too. I was sitting close to the Switch and somehow my controller was losing signal and it was registering buttons poorly, either holding them down or there would be this long ass lag delay or some shit before it would accept the button. No other console I've owned has done this ever. Now I've heard this is not only a common issue, but also the sign your controllers are defective and you should contact Nintendo for new ones. And also one of the controller batteries seemed to be shot as well, losing charge when the other Joy-Con seemed to have battery left still. So what do I think of the Switch in the end? Well, while they did learn from some of their biggest Wii U mistakes, for example, the marketing of the system, and this time focusing the system around the one thing people used the Wii U's gimmick for, which was off-TV play, it also has some other major issues, such as the controllers. The Switch does work as a handheld, and it's clearly the most powerful handheld console made, especially when the Vita was clocked about as fast as the original PSP was, yet it has 3 main issues as a handheld. The graphics are downgraded when unlocked, the console is about as big as a Game Gear or Lynx, and perhaps most importantly, the battery life is also mediocre, only lasting around 2 to 3 hours. If you want to game all day, you'll need to feel like an iPhone user lugging around an external battery pack. As a console, though, it fails much worse. The controller's mediocre, the graphics are nowhere near the Xbox One or PS4, it lacks an Ethernet port in the dock, and perhaps worst of all, the console is jimped storage-wise. And while it can't hold a candle to a true console like the PS4 or Xbox One, it is priced higher than a base model Xbox One or PS4, and to make matters worse, the games also cost $60, compared to $40 on the 3DS or Vita. It also does not have a lot of games yet, and while you know that Asian developers will make games for it, considering how it's essentially replacing the 3DS and Vita in the market, good luck saying the same about Western developers. You'll get your first-party Nintendo games, and you'll get the same kind of games the Vita had for sure, but you likely won't get the same games you'd find on other consoles for sure. Yet with the PS4 or Xbox One, you know this is guaranteed. You know if you buy a PS4 or Xbox One, you'll be able to play games such as Kingdom Come Deliverance, for example, or Fortnite. But on the Nintendo Switch, you won't be able to play that, but you'll be able to play Senran Kagura or Bean Bean Wahoo for sure. I mean Mario. But that's the thing. That's the biggest issue with the Switch right now. It lacks games too. And for $300, it's a waste of money right now, especially when it can't do anything other than play the handful of games it has. And that's really all I can say about the Switch. Unless you have disposable income or welfare or something, I'm not sure I would spend $300 on a Switch. Anyone who remembers the Wii U should know buying a Switch and expecting Western third party is a gamble. All in all, the Switch is not worth it, especially for $300. And that's all that needs to be said about the Nintendo Switch. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more game reviews.